And I would say start as simple as possible from there, because one product can turn into an entire business. And then if you want to obviously add on more to that as you go down the line, you grow, that's great. But leverage the technology. There's a lot of free stuff out there. Use that to jumpstart what you're passionate about with one single North Star and mission, with one product, and that's it. And just start from there.
Welcome to Business with Purpose. I'm your host, Molly Stillman of stillbeingmolly.com. And this show is all about bringing you the stories behind the brands, companies, and small businesses that are changing the world. Each week, I get to sit down with an entrepreneur, a CEO, a nonprofit director, a community leader, or just an incredible person who is trying to make a positive impact, not only through their personal life, but also with their career. My goal is to show you that no matter what you do for a living, you can make an impact wherever you are. My guest this week is Grant Trahant. Grant is the founder of Causeartist, one of the most influential impact business platforms in the world. Since 2013, Causeartist has been read in over 200 countries. Grant has personally interviewed over 650 impact entrepreneurs from around the world, highlighting innovations in ethical fashion, climate change, ethical technology, impact investing, and sustainable travel. Grant's also a professional web designer and developer specializing in building e-commerce solutions for startups, modernizing platforms and donation funnels for nonprofits and NGOs. He consults with so many incredible startups and businesses on how to create a media brand within their company's infrastructure to drive new customer acquisition and customer retention through content marketing and high-quality SEO content. He's also a proud partner and advisor to Charity Charge. The Charity Charge MasterCard is actually the only credit card program created specifically for nonprofits and is now benefiting over 1,000 organizations across the country. Grant has become a kind of a dear friend over the last couple of years. He and I have connected through the internet, and I was a guest on his podcast, and he is just one of the original just people in the ethical and sustainable and conscious consumerism spaces, just highlighting the incredible work that these companies are doing. I was so honored to have him on the show, and you're going to love this conversation. Before I get to my conversation with Grant, I want to thank our partner of the show, and that is Mama Suds. Now, my girl, Michelle Smith, she's the head mama over at Mama Suds. She's been on the show. I'm a huge fan of her brand, and I use her products every single day. Love her. And what Mama Suds does is helps label reading moms and dads create a safe and non-toxic home for their family by creating synthetic-free household cleaners. And one of those cleaners is the Mama Suds Fine Linen Soap, which, let me tell you, is the best thing since sliced bread. Wash your high-quality sheets, linens, delicates, organic fabrics with a fine linen soap to keep them looking newer and softer longer. Now, here's what you have to do. You use 3 to 4 capfuls for a high efficiency machine on a delicate cycle, or if you got a regular machine, just get that delicate cycle, put 4 to 6 capfuls instead. You're going to be amazed. You can head on over to mamasuds.com and use the coupon code MOLLY for 15% off your order. That's mamasuds.com and use the code MOLLY for 15% off your order. Now on to my conversation with Grant. Grant, I am so pumped to have you on the show. Welcome, brother. How you doing?
Doing great. I'm doing great. How are you? It looks sunny. It looks sunshine is just a lady in the room right now. So I could see you're having a glorious day.
The Shekinah glory is just Well, I'm so excited. This has been a long time coming. I had the honor of being on your podcast back over the summer, and it was so much fun. And you and I have just both kind of crossed paths many times over the years. This year was the first time we'd really had the chance to actually connect and talk. Yeah. And you are just one of the kind of the originals in the industry of, the kind of the social entrepreneurship space and all of that. You have interviewed some of the most incredible people. You have an incredible podcast, the Causeartist, Causeartist is your brand. But then you've got obviously the podcast, you've got the website, you've got all these different things. So Grant, let's dive right in. Let's give us the Grant 101. So tell us who you are, what you do, how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I'm the founder of Causeartist, which has been around it'll be 8 years in November.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome.
it's pretty wild to think about. But like you kind of back in the day, quote unquote, when we started, there wasn't that many sort of impact startups out there. And it was kind of just coming in the forefront of how to use business to sort of solve social issues. And my degree was in political science and digital media. So I wanted to try to find a way to blend sort of the research aspect with looking good, right? Like
Yeah.
using digital media and graphics to kind of make, historically maybe like boring pieces of content interesting. And, business has a way of kind of doing things and scaling in a way that sort of traditionally nonprofits just can't do, right? So you kind of hit a wall in solving issues with sort of traditional nonprofits. So looking at the business world was really interesting. I thought was really powerful of how business and brands and sort of this new revolution of founders looking at ways to solve whether it's community issues locally or internationally, issues at a global scale, how to use business to kind of maybe solve that.
Yeah.
And I just thought it was so interesting, so powerful. And, it's just been amazing to see the industry graduate to, traditionally, bracelets, maybe sort of knickknack items that we think of to some of the best items in the world.
Yeah.
That you can, anything you can see on a shelf, there's going to be an ethical or sustainable alternative now that can compete with design and quality and price. So it's really been amazing to see the industry come from, really nothing, right? To now it's sort of it's coming to the forefront of now, capital allocators, people investing in these startups, but also consumers, right? I think it's been top of mind more and more as the years go by. Consumers want to understand more what they buy. And I think that the food industry was sort of the first inkling of people wanting to know what they put in their body.
Yeah. That's always what I've said, is it kind of like food was the gateway, the whole farm to table thing. Yeah.
Yep. And now it's more, what are we putting on our bodies is now, I think, the next phase of figuring out how we as consumers can, solve issues and, see the things we want to see in the world through our dollar. Is at this point, it's probably more powerful than our vote, which is unfortunate, but it just sort of is what it is. So let's use it as such, so that's kind of the background of what I wanted to build Causeartist on, and just, telling stories and kind of, researching and covering the sector has been pretty fun and pretty wild.
Yeah. It's so funny that you say that, because that is really so much of kind of the point that I've sort of illustrated to people over the years is like, do you guys remember how, what year did you graduate college?
College? Well, I didn't start college until I was 24 years old.
Oh, okay. So I have
a different path than most people.
That's okay. I mean, and these days I'm like, you don't really need to go to college. I'm not going to tell my kids that, but you don't really need to go to college to really be successful. But I think back to so I was in college from 2003 to 2007. And I think about then I don't think I really would have even known what non-GMO is, or organic. I mean, I totally, I don't know.
Yeah. It just wasn't even a search term you could search in Google, really.
No, not at all. And so that really, I think that kind of began to become more prominent towards the end of college, 2007, 2008. And then that was really, I feel like, when it was becoming more at the forefront of things. And then certainly by 2011, 2012 is when I feel like I remember people really paying attention all of a sudden to, because I think at the time that's when you started to see a lot of the Monsanto controversies. And I don't know the exact years of that stuff, but I feel like that's there was a lot of controversy as to what's in our food and how's our food being raised and yada, yada, yada. And then it just kind of, I think the natural progression was into our products. And then obviously you have the Rana Plaza complex disaster in 2013, which really began that kind of evolution of kind of educating people and waking people up to the realities of these things. So you started Causeartist 8 years ago. At the time, was there a particular brand? Because I almost in mind, thinking back to that time, I'm that was Tom's was really big at the time. They were really at the forefront of this buy one, give one model. And obviously
Warby Parker had just started to really gain some traction. But I was more into sneakers back then.
Oh yeah.
So I've been sort of, sneakerhead, my whole, like a lot of my life. And so I would always look at like blogs and stuff around like what's the new stuff coming out from a shoe standpoint, right? And then I was like, it was like the model was cool as far as like the blog structure and just you could see when stuff was coming out. But I was like, there wasn't a platform out there kind of doing that within this area, right? Like, okay, what are the new Toms coming out? Like, what are the new Warby Parkers coming out? And back then, like I said, there really wasn't that many brands.
Yeah.
So I really had to do some work. And back then it was like, who's launching on Kickstarter?
Yeah.
So I would look and like research like who's coming up on Kickstarter and like, are there like conscious brands on Kickstarter or other sort of formats like that? So that's kind of early on where I would find products to kind of showcase or even founders to interview. So, back then when I used to reach out to brands, like everybody would say yes, because like nobody was trying to interview them, right? Maybe it was like you, that was it. But like, no, but they're like, everybody was like, yes, of course. So like, it's been cool to see like some of those brands like go from, a Kickstarter or a crowdfunding campaign, years and years ago to now, having full-fledged businesses, right? And having employees and seeing that growth with them has been really, really interesting and really cool. So it was kind of from those sneaker blogging days where I was like, I want to do kind of that for impact, like accessories and fashion.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it started. And now it's really got into more like tech and climate tech is big now, but a lot of how technology is going to, how can we create ethical technology, right? Or technology that can scale a lot of these impact things.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a maturation of as the sector grows, so does the content, right? So does the people we interview. So it's been really cool.
Is there one brand or, maybe founder in particular who you kind of connected with or interviewed sort of at the like start of their idea, and then you've gotten to really see them grow and you're just like, man, I knew that guy when? Like who was that?
No, I think there's definitely a ton. But I would say like Bridget from Listen Headphones is a great example.
Yeah.
Hannah from Bang Shoes is a great example. Haley from Maddie Apparel, which is the hoodie I have on.
Yeah.
They are really, really fascinating to see their growth. They started out women's sort of lingerie.
Yeah.
Right. And so just one item underwear. It's buy one, give one underwear because it's the most requested item in women's homeless shelters and domestic shelters is underwear. And so they started with their buy one, give one there. But the thing that they did differently too was they also trained and employed the women within these shelters. So they gave them, training and job security while they were in this sort of transitional point in their life. So it was a really full ecosystem of the people who made it were sort of locally, and the give back model was to people in sort of their situations that were even worse off than they would. And they would go to Haiti and stuff and do drops for clean underwear and things like that. But now they've expanded to sleepwear and leisure wear as it's big. And now they had launched a men's line. So coming from one product, right, years ago, this just one basic product for women has turned into full lines of both men's and women's. And it all started from a crowdfunding campaign, years ago. And now they've expanded and they have a storefront, right? So it's like stuff like that is super amazing to see the growth and just like keep plowing through it, right? Is like, this month you're going to lose money, or like this thing happened. And now it's like, oh, we have to close shop. No, because this thing happened and we can survive another month. And then all of a sudden it's 5 years later, and you have really good revenue and you have a couple of employees, and it's just like, you found a good place. And that to me is so much impact in that small business sort of impact brand as well. Like you don't have to be doing 5 million in revenue to make an impact and have a good business, right? Like there's all kind of different ways that we can define impact. So I think that's sort of important too to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. That defining success is such a, I think, an individual term, because success for one person is going to look very different than success for another. Success for one business or brand is going to look different than success for another. So it's like, how do we define our own individual success? And that actually leads me to a great transition. And so we're switching up the format on this show. And so we're kind of going to have these mini, I don't want to say workshops, maybe that's the term, but the kind of these mini little segments within the show where my guest today, that's you, Grant, gets to kind of just share some wisdom in a particular area. And so we're going to transition to that real quick. Okay, so Grant, you are somebody who has built this incredible media kind of, I want to say media empire. I don't give you too much credit. I just kidding.
Just say platform.
Media platform, but media empire sounds better. And you've really found success in, through something that you're really passionate about. I know that for a lot of people, this is something, especially in the day and age that we live in, and with a pandemic and all these things, a lot of people have, either been laid off or let go from their jobs, or they are suddenly finding themselves in a place where they're like, you know what, life is too short, and maybe I can be successful doing something that I'm really passionate about. And I know that this is something that you have some experience in. And so would you kind of share your wisdom for how does someone, like if they're just like, how do I become successful doing something I'm passionate about? What would you say to them?
I would say the good news is that there's so much technology now to develop something that could scale really well with just yourself. So the one thing I would say is that like the technology stack and toolkits, whether it's an e-commerce store, is what most people will probably like start with. But even if you're like a consultant, right, or an advisor, like the technology nowadays to automate things is there for you, right? So the barrier to entry to start your own thing is very low now, right? I mean, if you have, $50, $100 a month, you can literally probably run your whole business from, a back office standpoint, so to speak, really, really well. So that's the good news, is that it's not overwhelming. You don't have to have technical knowledge to really put something together, right? And get started very quickly. So that would be sort of the first thing. And the good news there is that. So I would start with sort of researching of what you want to build. So if it's e-commerce store, right? That's what I think most people might start with, because they want to sell a product, merchandise, apparel, whatever it may be. E-commerce is something that you can scale very quickly with. So I would start the biggest thing, and that I see people had issues with early on, was trying to start too big with too many products. I think the Maddie point is really good because they started with a single product. So what are you passionate about? And then what do you want to see in the market that doesn't exist, and make that one item really, really well. Don't start with 3 or 4 things. Don't start with each product gives back to each individual nonprofit based on what you buy. Don't make it complicated. The best companies and brands that I've seen have started with one product. And I think you've seen this as well.
Yeah.
That is the best case scenario to start with. Leverage the technology that's simple to use, easy to get up. Start with a cause that you feel passionate about. And you say, hey, I will dedicate my years of my life to this. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out, but you still enjoy the ride. Pick a cause that you want, and then pick one single product that you can use that can deliver some sort of impact. And I would say start as simple as possible from there, because one product can turn into an entire business. And then if you want to obviously add on more to that as you go down the line, you grow, that's great. But leverage the technology. There's a lot of free stuff out there. Use that to jumpstart what you're passionate about with one single North Star and mission, with one product, and that's it. And just start from there.
Yes. I, almost one of the things that came immediately to mind was the incredible ethical fashion brand Encircled. And Encircled started back in like 2012 or something like that with one product. And it was like just a solution that the founder had come up with. She traveled a lot, and she was like looking to pack less. And so she created this like convertible cardigan that you could wear as like a dress, a cardigan, a sweater, a scarf. Like you could wear it like 18 different ways. And she literally kind of created it. She's like kind of selfishly, because she was like, I traveled so much. I wanted
to use it, right? I needed it.
Yeah. And so she was like, it came out of this need. And so, and to this day, that's still like one of their most popular and best-selling products. But obviously they, over the years, ended up expanding their line and have, you know, women's workwear and leisure wear, but it's all still under that umbrella of like, it's all still comfortable enough to travel in. And so like I have a couple of their pieces that I love so much that I can dress up really well with, you know, a denim jacket or a blazer, but I also like lounge around the house in, like, cause they're that kind of, it's the most unique things. I'm like, how do you make something that is so comfortable and feels like pajamas? And then I've worn on a 16-hour flight to Kenya. I've like literally wore her travel, like it's like the work sweatpant travel pants. I don't know. They're magic. Yeah. I wore them on a 16-hour flight to Kenya and felt so comfortable the whole time, but then have also worn them on like a girls' night out. So I'm like, how did you do this? But it all started with that one product, and over the years, just innovating. And so I feel like that's such a great example of what you were saying, of just like finding this one thing. And then also being willing to say, you know what, we're just going to stick with this one product and we're just going to just kill it with this one product. You know, Root Collective with shoes, like, yes, they have innovated into new styles of shoes, but at their core, they make shoes. And so, you know, and I
spoke with a founder today that, you know, he's a non-technical, you know, founder, and he's building an app, right? So a very technical, like mobile app around, you know, sustainable, conscious consumerism and our purchasing power and things like that. So a really, really amazing thing. But he's like, I'm building it because I want to use it. There's nothing like this on the market, and this is what I want to do. And I was like, that's a great place to be at. Like, I built Causeartist because I wanted to, you know, back then there wasn't really many things out there, right? So I was like, I want this, so I'm going to build it for me. So that's also a good place to start, is like, build something that you want to use, build it for you. And then if you build it, they will come, right? Build the dreams type of thing. If you want it, there's a good chance that other people want the same thing. So again, starting from a very simplistic point of view of, what do I want to do? What do I want to spend my time on that will help me? Start there. And then you'll be very surprised. You see who's willing to help you out, right? With certain things, and ask questions and get people involved. Like, people will allocate their time and give you their time and energy and even perhaps talent and skills to help you build what you're truly passionate about, because people gravitate toward passionate people that want to build something really interesting.
Yeah. I know the other thing for you, especially in today's day and age where there's a lot of noise online, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but also can be a frustrating thing. And anytime you are building a media platform, like, you're gonna encounter hurdles, and podcasting is hard, content creation is hard, and the work you do is hard. And sometimes people will think, oh, that's cute, you have a little website, a little podcast, it's not just precious. But the reality is like, it's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of consistency. It's a lot of continuing to show up. And I know that one of your kind of pillars is talking about consistency being the king to success. And what has that looked like practically for you? And for somebody who really is listening and is feeling like they just want to give up, and they're just like, I can't, I'm hitting so many hurdles, and my business has been hit with the pandemic or whatever it is. Like, what is it that it has practically been helpful for you over the years?
I think it goes back to what we talked a little bit before, is passion. You know, that always helps. If you love what you're doing, you really like it and enjoy it, those tough times, you know, will come and go. So even though it's a very much an emotional roller coaster, those times come and go. And I think I've started to realize and understand that is a temporary state of being, right? Is that state of like, you know, I just want to, you know, sell it or end it or just shut it down and kind of move on to the next thing. I've had that experience, like, literally days away from like shutting it down and kind of moving on to the next thing, and an email would pop in my inbox, right? That was like, damn, this is amazing. Like, I need to interview you, right? Or spotlight you because you're doing something incredible. Or somebody would email me and you know, say something good or something like that. So those little things that people, you know, those thankful pieces, they're just little things like that.
Yeah.
Like, never be afraid to send that stuff, because that stuff means like the world to me, right? And probably you and others out there, when you create something and you're producing something and you're taking time and you're consistent knowing that people like it and like it's a source for like happiness and joy in their life in some small way is a big deal,
Mm-hmm.
So that being consistent in obviously producing content, being there sort of for people when they need you or they want the platform to help them in some way, I like utilizing it in that way as well. But it's knowing that the hard and tough days are going to come and go, just like the weather, the rain doesn't last forever and the sun's going to come out. And knowing and understanding that now it feels much better. Knowing that you have the passion on your side and then like you want to do this, you want this to be your life's work. Like that's a big deal. So, take the long view approach I do. And a lot of people will start companies to get acquired, right? And you start a company to do something, right? But people also start companies and brands because they want it to be what they are known for, right? They want to put their life's work in something. And so this is mine. And so knowing that internally, like gives me the drive and sort of the comfort of getting through the downtimes.
Oh, that's so good. And I'd always go, like when you talk about things like that and that just importance and consistency and showing up and not throwing in the towel when it gets hard and having that long view. Like I always love to talk about the stories of people who we view as like these quote overnight successes. But then when you learn about their stories, you're just like, oh, that guy actually like worked at this for a really long time. Like I think about like J.K. Rowling, like she was denied by, what is it, like 15 publishers. And they were like, no kids are going to read a story about wizards. And she's cackling all the way to the bank now. And so, and it took her years of rejection. I think about the guy who wrote and created The Queen's Gambit on Netflix. I read something that said that he worked on that script and was pitching it for nearly 20 years.
Unreal.
20 years he was working on that piece. And then obviously it became the massive success that it was. Morgan Freeman didn't star in his first like major motion picture till he was like 52. And now he's like, Morgan freaking Freeman. So there's so many examples of people who kept at it and they had this passion within them and they did not give up and they saw the long view. They saw it as planting these seeds and they didn't know when they were going to be able to harvest those seeds. But man, that's so good. That's so wise. Is there anything else that you would kind of just, especially knowing sort of the atmosphere that we're living in right now, any kind of like last pieces of wisdom that you would want to impart?
I would just say, again, going back to sort of the technology part, I think and the power of what we have at our disposal, like, to me, I'm always learning, like education and learning about how to do different things, how I don't want to depend on other people to get stuff done.
Yeah.
So I think constantly learning about what's out there that can make you more efficient, to me is what I try to work at a lot. If there's something new out there, I try to learn it pretty fast and try to sprinkle it in the workflow in some way. And so always be learning, I think is so valuable for us as humans. And so now more than ever with the pace of technology that's moving, but even if it's just reading, right? Like education comes in a lot of different forms, or listening, right? I've become a podcast head myself. So like it's listening, reading, watching. There's so many different ways to learn in more hours of the day than ever before. So I think we should all take advantage of that, and just how we, put certain food in our bodies, put certain things on our bodies. Also what we intake as content is also could be nutritious, right? For our brain and our psyche and our mental health. So, education to me is such a powerful thing that most people have access to now and like ever before. And it's getting better every single day. The access to get better in life is pretty important. So I think we should not take that for granted, being in sort of the modern world where we have access to high speed internet. Like, don't take that for granted. That's a big deal. A lot of the world does not have that.
Man, so there's a lot I could say about that, but It's time to go on to the next segment, but that was so good. I think I'm gonna have to have you back on the show just so we can talk entirely about that, because I have lots of thoughts, as I do most things. Okay. Now we're going to transition to story time. It's story time. I need somebody to like make a little zinger for this, like a little that's just like has maybe some lullaby music, like bing, 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 bing. It is story time. So I love stories.
That was it right there. What do you mean?
There you go.
Just did it. Clip that.
Yeah, clip that. There it is. There it is. We did it. Okay. So I love stories. I was a creative writing major in college. My mom was an author. I love stories. My kids love stories. We all love stories. And I think in general, we just, as human beings, we are wired to connect to story. So we have a story that you're going to share about your friend Trinity. So tell us this story about your friend Trinity.
Oh man, he's one of the most inspiring people I've never met in person, just because everything happening with COVID and lives halfway around the world and all this other stuff. But he's doing some incredible stuff. And again, this kind of goes back to, what does impact look like, right? There's a bunch of different things that happens, and we can say impact is this, impact is that. I think impact is whatever you want it to be that really, impacts a person's life. It doesn't have, don't ever let anybody tell you that impact is decided one way or another. There's certain degrees of it. It's all relative to who you're talking to. But he grew up in the slums of Uganda, right? And so like we're talking about access, right, is a bit different. So he tells me his story, and then I want to kind of reverberate it to the world, because what he's doing is so great. And he was living on the streets, and he sort of was saved by this group, and he said, I'll never forget the day that they handed me a laptop, and so he's like, I was just a poor street kid that had nothing, and somebody gave me a laptop, and it opened my eyes to everything and to the world, right? And so it really got to me, because like technology has really changed my life, and it changed a lot of people's lives, the opportunity, the access to things that it brings. And so that just changed his entire life. He did what we just talked about. He educated himself. He learned all kind of stuff. He taught himself to speak English, right? Like everything you could think of, just through this one piece of equipment, changed his entire trajectory of his life. And so now what he has done through his love for technology is now he is taking kids out the slums of Uganda and building a tech hub, right, in the middle of this impoverished area, and training the next generation of, African sort of tech heads, right? Like we think of China and America, but like Africa is like the fastest growing place in the world for skilled talent. And just young individuals using what they have, their ability through technology, to build companies, to create access for them and their family through the skills that they are generating. And what Trinity is doing is building this, business model, right, where he has a nonprofit where he trains, the kids that want to come in, and they find out what they're good at, right? So maybe like JavaScript is not for them, right? Or a WordPress developer or graphic design is not for them. Maybe they want to be a makeup artist or something like that. So uses the nonprofit to sort of give individuals the ability to find out what they want to do. And if it is tech, then he hires them through his business, where they do, web design and graphic design for clients all around the world, right? So you have this amazing ability to lift people up out of poverty through job creation, through technology. And so that, to me, is how you change generations. Is through the ability of not just like jobs, but like careers. Everybody wants to create jobs and all this, jobs. But at some point we got to create careers, because that is that's longevity. That changes a generation. That means when the economy is up and down, careers, a lot of times those have staying power, and they don't just go by the wayside where you can just be sort of fired or let go based on economic times. So he is building this ecosystem of training using technology, hiring tech talent, creating tech talent, and then distributing that across the world to partners from the United States, to the UK, to other parts of Africa, to other parts of Europe, around the world. There's this hub in Uganda that is like amazing doing all this stuff, right? And like they still have to deal with like all kind of problems, because then when they get hit by COVID, like he has to deal with all this different stuff because they don't have the same type of vaccine support or same type of even hospitals built, right? So like he has to deal with that all while, you know, dealing with the nonprofit and keeping the business afloat, right? So like his issues and his hurdles are much more difficult, but like his passion and his drive for wanting to basically like change his country through business, not charity. He always expresses that to me. He's like, we don't want charity. We just want opportunity. You know, we just want access to compete in markets and be effective at that. So like, to me, I always try to tell his story and express what he's doing there, because I truly believe what he is doing is, you know, you can absolutely say it's changing the world. You know, it's changing lives there, and it's going to change generational lives. So I always try to, whenever I have time to speak or the opportunity to do so, I try to excel in what he's doing and express, you know, my thoughts to him. And he's so funny. I'm sure he'll hear this and he'll comment to me. So, but I always try to just do that because I believe in so wholeheartedly what he's doing.
That is amazing. And you said something that was a light bulb moment for me that I have never until this very day, Grant, thought about. And I'm going to be thinking about this a lot and almost like rephrase. Like, this is the kind of phrase that is so small and you may have just said it and not have even thought about it. But this might like completely shift the way I think about things, is the difference between job creation and career creation. I have never thought about that before, consciously. And because I'm such a huge advocate for job creation. I believe that jobs can change generations. I believe that giving people access to jobs is at the root of, people at the root of poverty, at the root of human trafficking, at the root of drug trafficking, at the root of all these things. Like, a lot of times it's a lack of access to a job. And I think it's actually a lack of access to a career. And I've never thought about that. And my mind is completely blown. So thank you for like blowing up my mindset on something. And like, I'm just like, wow, how do we create careers instead of just jobs? That is so good. That's so powerful. I don't know if that struck a chord with anybody else, but I'm going to be thinking about this the rest of the day. I just had never thought about it in those terms before. That's so good. Grant, I knew that this was going to be awesome because you are awesome. Okay. So before we transition to the get to know you round, how can people connect with you? Tell us your website, your podcast, all the things, because people are going to want more Grant.
Just at Causeartist everywhere.
Yeah.
The handle is the same everywhere. For podcasts, you can just type in that. And we have a couple. So Disruptors for Good is the one that is kind of the main one. And then Investing in Impact is the other one, where I sort of talk to, like I said before, the capital allocators of all this, like who's funding and investing in these startups is, to me, very, very important. So Disruptors for Good is kind of talking to the founders and kind of who's building the companies. And then the other podcast is around who's funding them, right? How can people get access to funding to build what they want to build? So those are two sort of the things that I focus on. But at the end of the day, it's just at Causeartist everywhere. And then causeartist.com, of course. But any Causeartist on any platform, that's what it is.
Awesome. All right, Grant, this is the portion of the show where we just get to ask some fun, get to know you questions. So Grant, are you ready for the get to know you round?
Maybe. We'll see.
You will be. Okay. What is currently on your most played playlist on Spotify?
Oh, goodness. That's a good one. Lo-fi music has really taken me by storm.
Yeah.
It's so anything lo-fi. So lo-fi work is probably the playlist that I go to the best right now.
Okay.
Because it gets you locked in.
If somebody doesn't know what lo-fi is, and by that somebody, I mean.
Yeah. So lo-fi is basically like it's
raise his hand.
It's very chill acoustics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I like
so it's
that.
no words. So there's no words.
Oh, okay. So I listen to
modern classical, if you will.
Okay. So I love so when I work, I listen to like work/focus music. I actually, maybe this is weird, I've shared this before, I think on Instagram. I love listening to movie and television scores. That's like that's like what I listen to when I work and focus is movie and television scores. And so I have this like whole playlist of just the like background score music from movies and TV shows. But there's one particular movie that every time the score from that movie comes on, I legitimately start to tear up. And then there's one particular
that's why I couldn't do it.
TV show that as soon as the music starts to play, I love them so much that I can't remove them from my playlist. But every time I get really nostalgic. And do you want to know what they are? Okay, so number one is Forrest Gump, actually. Is Forrest Gump.
That's a great one.
Like
that is a great one. Yeah.
I legitimately like I go okay.
But see, then you have to stop work though, right?
I know.
Like you have to stop. And it's like
but it's so good. I can't remove it. And then this is embarrassing. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe somebody who was as big of a fan of this show as I was will understand like why I love the entire score from this show, and that's Lost.
Oh yeah.
Oh my gosh. The score from Lost is so good. But then anytime like any form of the life and death music comes on, like again, Lost fans will know exactly what I'm talking about. I go, we have to go back. We have to go back. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. I love Lost so much. Okay. Moving on.
Sneaky one would be Book of Eli.
Oh, yes. I love that movie. That is
very good scores in that movie.
I think that is one of Denzel's most underrated.
Very much. It's in my top 3 Denzel movies for sure.
So freaking good. Okay. We're moving on. Okay. Question number 2. What is something that I would never guess about you? Do you have any like hidden talents?
I'm like really egregiously like nastily double jointed in my fingers, and like so like it's kind of I do like these real like red knuckle things with it. Like I could hit you could like I have like these really weird things. I know. So that's a weird thing for video stuff. But yeah, my wife always hates when I do that stuff. So that's pretty funny.
That's really funny.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think that would be the one thing I could say. I don't know any other was like weird things.
It totally counts.
That counts. Okay.
It counts. Yeah, it totally counts. Okay. What is the best vacation you've ever taken?
Great question. Very difficult though. I went to St. Martin for my honeymoon, and that was amazing. That was really, 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 really nice. So I would say that for like memorable reasons, and it was like beautiful. That's a really, really good one. But Maui is also a great, great place. I really, really love going. I've went there a couple of times, and that's been a really anywhere with a beach, really, if you can see the trend here.
Yeah. We went to Maui cool. Back in August, and we loved it. We were on more the, I guess, western part of the island, and like the Lahaina, Kanapali. We stayed in where was it? The Kalapu. I don't know. It began with a K. Kapalua. That's it. That's where we stayed. It was beautiful. So even in COVID times when like a lot of stuff was not the same, it was still beautiful. So, now I know you recently, like within the last year, moved to Amsterdam. So, when somebody decides that they want to travel to Amsterdam, like what's a pro tip about something to do in Amsterdam?
The greatest pro tip of all time is download Google Translate.
Oh, yes.
Because Dutch is very difficult to learn, read, or like listen to or speak. So Google Translate has like the camera thing. So basically you just have to put the camera up to words and it translates it through that. So that
I don't know how that works. It's like witchcraft. It's amazing.
Immense game changer. Like, so that would be the one thing I would say, honestly, any travel, like that little thing is so great because we went to Belgium, we went to France, we've been to like Spain, and everywhere we go, like the Google Translate like video thing is just like unparalleled. It's like the greatest utility of all time. So that's a good one. Random
question. Do you watch Ted Lasso like the rest of
course.
The world?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So one of my favorite scenes I think it's in season 2, but I could be wrong.
The Dutchman, they have a Dutchman.
The Dutchman. Yeah. And then Sam Obisanya, he's like, he is not being rude. He is just being Dutch.
He's not being rude. He's just being Dutch. Very, very great.
Is it so true? Is it so true?
I love it. Yes.
He's not being rude. He's just being Dutch. Like
it's perfect. Me and my wife started dying laughing because like, it's so true. It's like, they're like the nicest people ever, but it's like also like not coming from that culture. It can be,
they have no filter,
delivered the wrong way. You know, it's like, but like, it's so true. So that's a great point. Yeah.
Yeah.
They killed it with that.
Yeah. He's not being rude. He's just being nice. Oh, so good. Okay. And then my last question is, Grant, what does it mean to you to run a business with purpose?
I don't know. I think it just, I think it means more to me when other people get more out of it. I think that's really the really cool thing about this is that I get to uplift and inspire like so many people doing really cool and creative things all around the world. So I think, you know, for me, it's kind of selfish in that like I get to talk to all these people and I get to sort of intake all their like positive energy and like all the good things that they do in the world. Like it's just great mentally for me to have those conversations in your life and in my life. And so like, that's sort of what drives me and to see what other people are doing. It motivates me to kind of try to keep doing things interesting that always have some thought behind them and some compassion and humbleness behind them. Because I think at the end of the day, you know, making money is great, right? Like it is what it is. It is what sort of moves us and allows us to do certain things, but I've turned down more money than I've made because it just didn't. It's like, what's the point if you don't feel good about it? Then you know, then again, like what are we doing here? So being able to make those decisions have really, you know, made me have the ability to kind of, you know, talk sometimes in a real way where, you know, I can do what I want to do and feel good about doing it because it comes from a place where I think is humble and gracious and comes from a place of what I think it, you know, should be that I want to extend to the world. So just driving that, you know, force every day and trying to do good by the platform and good by the people that, you know, we talk about. I think just extending, you know, that education, that discovery to people, like that's giving away like a lot. Like that's my donation to the world in a lot of ways. Yeah. Right. That's how I look at it, is that that's what you can give away. So like, I try to focus just like you do, try to give a little bit of voice to, you know, awesome things in the world. I think that has karmatic value as well. So, you know, I just try to do that and keep grinding and stay focused on, you know, the bigger picture.
Yeah. Oh man, that's so good. Grant, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for coming on the show, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing story time with us, for laughing along the way, and just for the work that you have done for the past 8+ years and how you have just brought so much energy and voice to this industry. And you've played such a huge role in the growth of it. So thank you so much for everything that you do.
Thank you as well.
Friend, I would love to know what you loved about this episode or something that you learned. Find me on social media. I'm at Still Being Molly or at Business with Purpose Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. And don't forget to use that hashtag Business with Purpose Podcast when you're sharing the show with a friend. Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. If you are a first-time listener of the show, welcome. Be sure to check out the archives for past shows featuring so many incredible entrepreneurs, business owners, community leaders who are changing the world. If you are a regular listener of the show, thank you. Thank you for your support. Thank you for tuning in and week out. Be sure to head on over to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Radio Public, Overcast, Stitcher, basically wherever you get your podcasts. Click that subscribe or follow button. To click that button means you will never miss a new episode of the show. And while you're there, would you take a moment to just leave a review? Would you take a moment to maybe share one of your favorite episodes with a friend? Leaving a review, sharing the show with a friend, It is totally free for you, and it is the biggest help for me in the entire world. You have no idea how much I appreciate it. It just also helps me to know what you're liking and how the show is impacting you. As always, this show is produced by the incredible team at Third Wheel Media. Thank you so much for listening. Now go do something good with purpose, on purpose.